do the step into the miraculous and then the hemp works. And then, so over the next few days, I'll edit those and change them a bit so we won't be so bored. Okay. I got to show you what just came in the mail from HempWorks. Okay. Look, I want you to know that the shampoo and conditioner is fantastic. If you're not using it, you should use it. Yes. And then I'll tell you what else came today. My fruit gummies, the CBD fruit gummies. When you take them, each one is like 25 milligrams. They are fantastic for you and your body. I take them a couple of times a day. They help with anxiety. Do you take them?
I do. I tend to forget that I have the gummies, but I take my CBD and other.
Oh, you do, right? Right? You do. You take it.
I have some CBD pills, not pills.
Oh, you have the capsules.
I have the capsules, yeah.
Yes, I love the capsules. I also like the Relief. This is a cream that we use to put on pain. So it's a topical cream, cooling. And so I use this all the time.
I do too.
So I'm so happy it came. And then I have the tinctures. And some people love using the tinctures, 500, 750, and 1500. So you can get more concentrated doses if you need higher amounts of CBD.
Yeah, I have it in like 6 different flavors.
Which I'm sending this up to my son. I love this stuff.
It smells amazing and it's very luxurious.
I guess that's the word I'd use. It's really luxurious. It's a top quality product with hemp, good for your skin, and enriches it. Okay?
Yeah. So we love HempWorks.
And I do too. Well, welcome everyone. So have you ever felt Earth is not your home or realized that you're different from others? So our guest today, who I'm going to bring on in just a couple of minutes, Barbara Lamb, is going to explain to us what that feeling of not being like everyone else really is. So guys, I am Joan of Angels. I am so happy that you're here on the channel. If you're new to the channel, welcome, 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 and share, subscribe, and love it, because the truth is about to be revealed on all things, and I'm your host, Joan of Angels. And I am doing this series on stepping into the miraculous with spiritual luminaries and other inspirational people so that we can explore concepts on how to open your heart and step into the higher dimensional vibrations. So guys, I'm really just excited to see you. Today's episode is really going to be talking about how we get on the path of awakening by knowing more of who we are. And I'm very happy to introduce a friend of mine, an acquaintance, Barbara Lamb. She has a Master of Science, MFT, CHT. She's a world-renowned experiencer therapist, ufologist, crop circle expert, and past life therapist. She offers personalized regression therapy sessions, books, workshops, and interviews. And since the early 1900s, she has regressed more than 2,000 people in their encounters with not just ETs and other interdimensional beings, but also past life experiences, your soul journey. She's a consultant. She speaks at many conferences, received 4 Lifetime Achievement Awards from 4 major conferences, and written several books. So she's an amazing woman. You can find her all the time online because she's asked to speak everywhere. And I want to tell you a little bit about how I met her. So come and join me and welcome Barbara Lamb, our international guest right here. Ooh, there we go. Let's see. There we go. Hi, Barbara.
You did it. Hi.
I
Yes,
did
let's,
do it.
let's hear how we met. I would like to hear that.
You'd like to hear it from my point of view. Okay. I had been introduced to the crop circles, and I had gone for a week or two with a friend, and she had worked with Andrew Collins years ago, and she took me all around, but we didn't interact with any other people in the crop circle world. So a few months later, or a year later, I made up my mind I was going to go to that crop circle conference in Glastonbury and go by myself this time. I booked an Airbnb called the White House for a week, and I went to the crop circle conference, and I had never really done anything like that in that way before, like gone to a foreign country to take in a crop circle conference. And Barbara was the guide on my bus. And I was so taken aback.
I forgot that.
Remember, of course, that's a good thing. That I figured that's why I was going to tell the story. But you were the guide on the bus, and you were so fascinating to me. And the people on the bus, there was one woman there, an older woman who was an artist who had had a healing when she was with Lucy Pringle. Lucy had done a big write-up on her, and I had no idea. So I think, and then I had a regression with you. We squeezed it in. It was an old British building. It must have been from the 1300s or 1400s. And it was a great setting for a past life regression.
Right.
So that's how we met, everyone.
Thank you for reminding me about that. You know, I have had so many trips to England. 27 years I went to England for crop circles. And I had really, frankly, forgotten about leading those bus tours to the crop circles. I know for many years I led my own personal tours, of 10 to 18 people. And but I had forgotten about the bigger ones from the conference. Yeah.
Oh,
it was remember.
Yeah, and because you meet people in so many different ways, but it had, and this is something so interesting. It had such a profound effect on me, and we never know how a meeting like that has that kind of effect.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So
well, you and I have had amazing experiences, and so much has happened since then that we've both evolved and developed and learned so much since those early years. Yeah, both of us. It's amazing.
If I think about it, that was 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was summer of 2005, I think, and it was quite a while ago. So you've had 16 years without me here, where I've gotten to watch you about what you're doing now on the planet.
I know. Well, and then we meet once in a while. We meet once in a while, very happily. I have pictures of you from meeting up with you at different conferences, UFO conferences.
It's a good time to share that.
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah.
Share it on Facebook, yes. And that's been a love of my life. But so I want to ask you a few questions. All right.
Okay.
That's why I had you on the show, just to find out more about you personally too. Like, how did you get, so I understand you're a therapist and you probably had a traditional therapy training, right? And then you had to get your MFCC license and all of that. But then you branched off into something most therapists don't do, UFOs and experiencers and crop circles. So how did that come about? Like, did you start?
Well, after I had been a licensed therapist and in practice for about 8 years, I became very attracted to the idea of past life regression therapy because I had been having some spontaneous past life recalls, I call them, when I was traveling in other countries. And they were very vivid. And one of them was extremely traumatic. And I had to really process it emotionally. And I thought, I wonder if somehow, apparently, we do have past lives, which I had not believed in really before I was having those experiences. And I began to wonder if it could be used therapeutically somehow. What's happened in the distant past in previous lives that could be affecting us now. So fortunately, I discovered that there was the Association for Past Life Research and Therapies. And this is all in 1984. I discovered them and was very, very impressed with what those therapists were doing, past life regression therapists. And then I took 5 years of their training. And then eventually, that took us up to, well, 1990, 1988. And then during that time, I was really wondering about, the people's experiences with extraterrestrial beings, and had to do quite a bit of research about that to think, whether or not I even believed in that. And lo and behold, at a certain point in 1991, I had done enough research and heard enough people give testimonies about having those kinds of experiences with extraterrestrials, visiting them and taking them away for a while. And I decided one day that, I felt ready to work with that if anybody would ever come for that. I didn't think they would. But as it wonderfully happened, 2 hours after making that decision, one day in the shower, 2 hours later, I was in a metaphysical bookstore, and the woman behind the counter recognized me and asked if I would work with her 21-year-old daughter, who was highly traumatized by having these unusual extraterrestrial visitors coming into her room at night. It usually happens sometimes during the day as well. And she was really freaked out, having a very difficult time. So anyway, that young woman came to me. We worked for 6 sessions, 6 regressions. And at the end of that time, she volunteered that she felt privileged and honored to be part of whatever these beings were wanting to do. And so that was a really outstanding beginning for me. And then I thought, well, if anybody else wants to come for that reason about alien visitors, now I know I can work effectively with that, and it turns out well for the person. So then, I went off to England to do crop circles, and then when I came back, another woman came and I don't know how she heard about me. I was not public at all about doing this kind of work, but somehow she found out, and she came for the reasons of extraterrestrial contacts, and that work seemed to be very helpful. And then another woman a month later, and another one, and so it grew, and now it's been well over 2,040 people whom I've regressed to their extraterrestrial experiences. And not only that number of people, but some of them lived within an hour or so of me in Southern California, and they came for many regressions. I think one woman came for 60 regressions over a period of about 11 years. So that was a lot of people and a lot of information that really helped me to learn so much about this phenomenon, about the beings and their visits and their motivations and the different types of beings.
I'm so fascinated. First of all, you probably don't even know that I studied for an MFCC license, and I have a master's in counseling. But I went into chiropractic because I didn't think I didn't know about the regressions, and I didn't think people would ever come to me. And so I went to become a chiropractor. Of course, I had to deal with people coming to me then,
Sure.
But I love how you put out your intention and you knew. So did you know you had ET contact yourself? Do you feel that that's part of what drew you, or
No, I didn't think that I had at all, because all of the indications that the people I worked with and others I had heard about were not common experiences to me. I never had been aware of visitors in my room at night or anything strange or having missing time or unusual markings on my body, as so many people do have when they have extraterrestrial contact. So I considered myself completely a non experiencer. I like to call the people who experience these things experiencers rather than call them contactee or abductee, because contactee sort of implies that, oh, it's all wonderful and light and the beings are all absolutely incredible. And on the other hand, abduction and abductee um, sort of definitely suggests that this is a really across the board negative, horrible thing. And I think the fact is, really, the reality is that because there are so many different kinds of beings out there that come to us and do various things, and they all have their own individual agendas. So one species will come to people and they will be more scientifically oriented. They'll seem to be more self serving and they want to study our bodies, our physiology, and learn a lot about us. They want to study our emotions, mostly for their sake, for their interest, not, not to help us. However, there are a number of other species who come and take people for an hour or two, but they are much more benevolent and they do wonderful things with people, like teach them many psychic skills and inspire them to do really good work in the world and teach them how to heal other people and animals here, and many, many things that are really wonderful benefits of knowing them. And very importantly, a number of those different species or beings actually physically heal people, even of life-threatening conditions, heart attacks and cancer and all kinds of different problems that we have that have been healed by extraterrestrials. So there's a really big variety. That's why I call all people who have these experiences, I simply call them experiencers. And it is true that for even one single person, that person might have experience sometimes with the ones who do the physical examinations and poking and probing and taking of samples and putting in implants. And they, are not happy about those experiences. Although, as they come to understand it more, they develop a more accepting feeling about it. And then the same person might, on other occasions, have some of the really, really benevolent, unconditionally loving extraterrestrial beings coming to them. So I think that any one experiencer has a whole variety of things that happen. And I personally feel from my experience here is that the more somebody wants to look into it and have the regressions, the more they know about what actually happened, the more benefit they get out of that. In other words, it so often happens that when something mysterious happens and we don't know what it was, we only remember maybe a very few moments of the experience and we wonder, what was in the rest of it. That once they find out it, across the board with my experience of regressing so many people, once they find out the details of the experiences on board the ships with these unusual beings, the more they find out, the more they can integrate it, the more relieved in a way they feel, because it's the unknown in life, including this, that we really worry about.
Well,
And
yeah.
that's true when the beings come into the room
Mhm.
for a person. It's all they are unknown to the person, and they're very different looking, of course, and different acting. And so because of the unknownness, what are they going to do? What's going to happen to me? And especially if they feel themselves being levitated and floating across the room and through a wall, that really causes concern, as we could certainly appreciate.
Right. So they
And
they
so that,
recall this in the in regression. It's not like they remember it from the dream or from real
right.
life.
Yeah, most people remember just the very first few moments of an experience and
Right.
not the rest. But once in a while, I talk to somebody who has remembered a flash here or there about what happened on the ship, the UFO.
Mm-hmm.
But it's never been a continuous happening that they remembered, a continuous encounter. So in the regression, I always have the person go back to the very first moment of awareness that somebody else is there, something unusual is happening. And we go right through the whole experience, moment by moment, as if the person is reliving the
Uh-huh.
experience. And right
Just
through
so you know, I'm reliving it now. As we are talking, I
yeah,
have it in my belly button. I am reliving it a little bit now because I had very frightening experiences. I used to be terrified. Let's. I have a few questions for you. So, how would someone know that maybe they were an experiencer? That's my one question one. Okay.
okay.
How would we know?
Well,
What are some,
there are a number of different hints, and I think they're very important hints. For instance, some people have had what we call missing time. They've been doing something, and suddenly it's 2 hours later, and they think, "Oh, where did all that time go?" Or in some cases, they were driving in their car or riding in a car, and then the car motor seemed to sort of splutter and slow down, and usually they or the driver will pull off the road for safety's sake, and then they don't know anything for an hour and a half or 2 hours typically, and then suddenly they sort of wake up. It's like waking up. They come back into consciousness and then pick up their lives where they left off. And usually somewhere in there they will notice that, it's a couple of hours later than it should be. What happened? So that's one of those mysterious things that gets a person's attention. Another thing is that very often a person who experiences this type of thing will wake up in the morning and sooner or later notice that there are some strange markings on their body that weren't there the night before. So it might be a like a triangle shaped bruise, or it might be a perfect circle of what looked like little pink pinprick marks, or a straight line scar, or a straight line of little pinprick marks, um, or even a square pattern of pinprick marks. And then sometimes people will notice that somewhere on their body there's a little lump under their skin, and they might, that move that little lump around and push on the skin and notice that it feels like approximately the size of a little BB. And they wonder, how on earth did that get there? I didn't put that in there. Or they'll notice a little scoop shaped mark on their skin somewhere. Might be on a thigh or a calf or an arm, usually someplace where they can actually see it. And so these are clues. And then sometimes a person will have a kind of like a really quick flash of a memory of a face, uh, an extraterrestrial face. And especially impressive are those really big eyes, those big black eyes that seemed to be staring at them. And so
Like these.
all kinds of things. Yeah. Yes, perfect. Thank you.
We're bringing him in.
Perfect example. You know what? Yesterday, I walked out of my front door of my condo, and there in the just a regular thing, I was doing a regular errand, and I looked at the ground a few feet away, and there was a rock who looked exactly like that statue that you're holding up. Had big black eyes and the tapered face and a little tiny suggestion of a mouth and the rounded head. And I thought, isn't that a lovely synchronicity here? And this person who has so much to do with this, that I'm seeing this rock happens to be there. Now, I've been in and out of that door and past that garden many times, and I never saw it before. I somehow it seems like that was newly placed there, and my neighbors don't know anything about this part of my life. They don't know anything about the work that I do. So I'm still kind of wondering, how that happened.
Right? It could be very possible they took that form for you. Maybe there was a message for you. So you have not had your own personal experiences. Is that what you're talking about?
I have actually. But when I began the work, I know that I had not. Back in 1991, prior to 1991, I know that I had not had those kinds of experiences. But in 1994, I did. And that's because one of my wonderful clients who came many times also channeled an extraterrestrial being. And the extraterrestrial being is not here. He's way out there on a planet which we call Antares. But he has the ability must be like our remote viewing. He has the ability to know from a tremendous distance so much about what's going on here. And he knew that I was very, very involved in researching the crop circles, and that I would be going that particular year, 1994, for my fourth year, and was very excited about that. So in the channeling in January of that year, he told me that if I wanted to, when in England that forthcoming summer, that I could be taken for the making of a crop circle. And
wow.
Yeah. And that was really a surprise. And took me 6 months to decide within myself, because I'm a big chicken, really. I just didn't know what to expect, whether it would be safe or not. And so it took me 6 months to decide that, I'd like to take the chance and I would like to have that experience. So
They called him on the phone? How did you?
No, we never had phone calls. Not even.
But he got the message. He got the message.
He got the message because of the channeling that happened just before I left for England that summer, 1994. Anyway, I went to England, did a whole bunch of other things, and it turned out, make a long story short, it turns out that on that very last night before the last day of visiting crop circles that summer, that last night, 3 beings came into my room. I was aware of it, but I was out of consciousness by the time they got to the bed that I had just gotten into. And I was not conscious of anything the rest of the night until the alarm clock went off in the next morning. However, the next morning, I was with a big group of people. It was a conference group, and we traveled on a big double-decker bus from where we were staying to a place up in Avebury, England, where I recognized from the window of the upper story of the bus that there was an indentation in a field that we went by. And so I recognized that must be a new crop circle. So after the bus stopped, I ran out of the bus and into the car of a friend who was following with a rented car. And we went back And we were the first ones ever to be in that brand new crop circle. And it turns out, I'm making a long story short here too, it turns out that not only was I the first one to discover the crop circle, but that was the crop circle that I was taken for the making of. And I know that because after I returned from England, I had a past life therapy colleague of mine regress me to that night, seeing the three beings coming toward me in the room, and found out that, yes, indeed, I had been taken for the making of a crop circle on a small, round craft. And it was
Wow.
a very quick experience, a very nice experience, very neutral. The beings didn't do anything to me personally. They just took me, sat me down, and let me witness the whole thing. When it was over, really quickly, they brought me back to my room, and I slept the rest of the night until the alarm went off. So that, you see, I think is what opened the door. And I've sort of formed a theory gradually that once somebody has one experience with one kind of extraterrestrial being, they are likely to have experiences with other kinds. So I think the way that it must work is that these different species of beings, even though they're on different planets far, far apart, that they communicate because they all communicate telepathically anyway. And distance seems, huge to us, but to them, that really doesn't seem to be an issue. So I think that the group that took me for the making of a crop circle, that they were consistently one type of extraterrestrial being. I do not have a name for that, but I can still picture them. And then the information from them, I think, went out to other species who gradually, over time, over the next few years, several years, came to me. So in total, I've had 4 different experiences myself, and
That
each one a very, very different type of being. And they've all been perfectly good. In fact, they've been really, I would say, wonderful. Yeah, so I'm fortunate.
You are so fortunate that you see them. So this particular being I got at a conference where I think you were speaking at Neil's conference back in 2013. But I had a dream the night before that I was encircled by all of these beings that they were the healer beings. Cynthia Crawford had said, but yeah, I think that do you feel changed by that experience? I want to talk about maybe some of the personal changes that could happen to some, like, for instance, I feel ever since I've had contact myself, I feel smarter. I feel like I have a better perception of what's going on, almost like I could see, I have more clarity, and I am so much more clairaudient,
Yes.
connected to messages. I receive more, I channel, I started painting, direct channeling. So just curious to know, are those common symptoms, and what have you noticed?
Yes, well, and I really appreciate your sharing all that too, Joan. Yes.
My life. That's why we're talking.
Right. Anyway, many people realize that they benefit tremendously from their experiences and are very positive about having had those experiences. What you mentioned about the clairvoyance and understanding things and so forth does happen to many people, that they are taught these skills or maybe even given these skills and the ability to know so much more. And of course, having had positive experiences like that, that really inspires those people to learn more and more and more about it. And I do also have to balance that out a bit by saying that not everybody has experiences with those kinds of beings, who are so helpful to us, so benevolent. Many people describe them as being unconditionally loving. more loving than anyone they have ever known in their life here on Earth. So that does happen for many people. And then many people, have the other kinds of beings come and where they do not experience it so positively. And many people have both the loving, inspiring experiences like you have had, and I'm very glad that you have. But they also have some of the other kinds which seem to be more for the benefit of those beings
Right.
rather
They're
than
more
for the benefit of them. But
no.
really, again and again, even saying that, I want to hasten to add that so many people I know, from having worked with them and then knowing them in other ways too, so many people have had remarkable healings, physical healings from these extraterrestrial beings. For instance, a man I know um, went through a very difficult time years ago in his 30s, and he was extremely stressed out, and his body was showing all kinds of symptoms of having major problems. And I know one night he was lying in bed thinking, "Oh, there's just no point in my even going on with life." He wasn't directly contemplating suicide, but he was certainly thinking that there's just no point in continuing to live because he had so many different physical things going wrong, and he was very, very depressed. And he just kind of, while going to sleep, sent out the thought, he didn't know to whom, but sent out the thought, "I really need help." And then during that night, he was slightly aware for a few moments that there were beings there in the room doing something with him. He didn't know. He went on back to sleep or he was switched off. But in the morning, he woke up and he just felt great. He felt fine and continued to feel fine and went to work and, continued on with his life. And he realized from that just 3 seconds or so of awareness in the middle of the night that these were extraterrestrial beings who were there, before he kind of went out of consciousness. So he attributes this remarkable healing and rejuvenation to them. And then another time, about 20 years later, he was having a lot of difficulty in some particular way physically, and the beings came and healed him again. So there are just many, many testimonies in the regressions and outside of the regressions of people having been healed. And I think that is a really outstanding blessing. And I certainly wish that more of us had the ability to do that kind of healing like they do with us. That would be great.
That would be great. When you do regressions, Barbara, do you ever get to talk to the extraterrestrial himself or herself, the being?
Oh, I love your questions, Joan. You're
like,
right.
I want to know everything about this. I would be a regressionist at this point. This is very fascinating to me. So you speak directly to them.
Maybe you still will. Who knows? Yes, very often it happens that when I'm doing a regression, so it's the other person's experience that we're visiting, reliving. And if the person, for instance, is on a medical type table and the beings are doing something, usually in that case, they're doing some kind of improvement of the person's physical system. But anyway, before they realize that it is benevolent, they worry about, oh my gosh, what's happening? I can't move. I'm lying on this cold table and these strange beings are around me. And they're, poking and probing and doing various things. And they might or might not seem to be doing one particular kind of procedure somewhere on the body. And so very often I will say to the person, would you like to know what they are doing and why? And usually the person will say, yes, I would like to know. And I say, well, you can ask them and they will answer you. And I say that with surety because it's happened with so many previous regressions. And so I say, you can ask out loud with your words, or you can ask in your mind. And very often they'll just ask in their mind, just with their thought, like, what are you doing? And, how is this supposed to affect me? And then there'll be a few moments of silence. And then they will say, oh, they're saying that, like, for instance, they're healing a problem that I have with my liver that I hadn't even known that I had. I knew hadn't been feeling well in certain ways, but I didn't know that I had a liver problem, and that they have discovered that, and they are doing some processes to heal that, or whatever the situation was with the person. The beings will explain what the condition is that they have discovered in the person, and they explain what they are doing to remedy that situation. So when that's going on and they're in communication telepathically with the beings, and incidentally, most of us don't know that we have telepathic abilities, but in these regressions, people discover they do. They certainly hadn't known that before. But anyway, in that part of the session, sometimes it will happen that the beings, the extraterrestrial beings with the person, will say something to me, and they'll use my name. They'll say, Barbara, we want you to know, and whatever their message is. So it doesn't go on for a long time, but it might go on for 2 or 3 minutes or so, in which they are acknowledging gratitude that I have brought this person into knowing about their connection with these particular beings, and into knowing what's going on, and especially if the person is being helped, which in all of these cases they have been.
Right.
That they want the person to know that they are being helped by these particular extraterrestrial beings. So basically, the messages for me have been approving and really promoting that I continue to help people to know what's happening when they're having experiences with extraterrestrial beings. And also, not only that, but some of them have really been expressive about my speaking publicly, as I'm doing right this minute, about the beings and some of the many things that they do with humans. So,
are there things they want us to know that they're telling you right now? They want us to know. What do they want us to know?
Yeah, because for instance, in 2008, I had an experience, which I certainly did not expect, but Nadine Lalich and I had just finished writing a book, which we call Alien Experiences. That's available also. And it was about 25 cases that I had taken from all the cases that I had worked with. 25 cases of very different kinds of things that happen to people in their extraterrestrial experiences. Thank you. I will now immediately switch to.
Let's talk about this book, because this is your latest book. And
this is the latest book. Yeah. And
tell us about this one.
This is unique because, as far as Mary Edwards, my co-collaborator and illustrator, and I know, it's the only book in existence, as far as we know, that really talks about real extraterrestrial experiences that children have So all of these stories and pictures in the book come from real accounts, from real children I have either regressed or talked in detail about. Because some children remember a lot of detail about their extraterrestrial encounters, and some remember a little bit here and there and need the regression and are old enough to have the regression so that I have regressed them to their extraterrestrial experiences. Anyway, the book is geared for children, but we also recommend it for adults because it's not only about 18 different kinds of experiences that children have with extraterrestrials that they have had, and I'm sure are continuing to have. But it is something that if a parent would read the book or look at the book with the child, it might trigger the memories of the parent if the parent has had experiences with extraterrestrial beings as well. So you see, many of the people I regress, and all these years since 1991, many of them, of course, are adult. They're mostly are adults of various ages. And many of them have been regressed back to experiences with extraterrestrials, which they had had when they were children. And a very typical thing is that when a child experiences these beings coming into the room and doing unusual things, including taking them away for a while, the child will frequently mention that to the parents the next day. Oh, the little boogeyman came, or the little monsters came, or my little space friends came, or however they talk about them. And the parents usually say, oh, it must have been a bad dream, or it must have been your imagination, or it must be your imaginary friends. In other words, the children don't have anybody usually who will really take them for what they're saying and really take it as truth. And so these children, are confused. They want to talk about it, but they don't find anybody who'll believe them. And so this book has a lot to do with getting the conversations going between the children who have these experiences and their parents, and to really bring to the parents' awareness that yes, these things really do happen to many people. They don't happen to everybody, but they happen to many, many people. So we want to get the child validated if the child is having experiences, and the parent to be validated, and definitely to open up the line of communication between the parent and the child. Also, it will acquaint many other children and parents to the fact that these experiences are really, really happening.
Right.
And so we think it's really good, a perfect timing too, because
I love that.
there's a little bit of disclosure coming out now from the United States government. And I mean, a lot more thought about all these UFOs, strange things in the sky. So, I mean, it just happens serendipitously.
As if they didn't want your book to come out right now.
Yeah, it seemed like it.
As if they actually, and it's interesting you said disclosure, UFO disclosure. It is trickling out from the government, but you know what? It is bursting forth from experiencers.
Yes.
This disclosure, I noticed, and this weekend, I don't know about you, but I'm in a disclosure conference that's happening this weekend. 55 speakers disclosing. I don't know what they're disclosing. I know what I'm disclosing, but it seems like they are disclosing. The people are disclosing, and that gets me to my next question. We haven't really talked about the hybrid children that much, but do you think that's very pervasive on the planet, or do you think there's only a small percent? Like in my world, I know lots of people who've had experiences and hybrids and contactees, et cetera. But in the other world, is this common, or is it?
Well, I think it's such a great question. I think that hybrids ET human hybrids on Earth are more common than we could possibly even imagine. So I would say personally, I know about 30 people whom I am convinced are ET human hybrids. And they're all here. They were all hybridized, and they are all here to give benevolent service, basically to help to raise the consciousness of humanity. And boy, do we need it, that raising of consciousness of all the
Yes,
negative
they do.
stuff going on. Oh my gosh. But anyway, we humans have the capacity for a wonderful higher consciousness. And these hybrid people are people who are bringing that to the world. Now,
Wow.
there are people who are born here fully, the normal way that we are born, but at conception or during life in the womb, they were given extraterrestrial genetics by the extraterrestrial beings. So, any one of these hybrids whom I know has a combination of DNA from 4 or 5 or 6 different species of extraterrestrials who are all benevolent, and they're all very caring about Earth and concerned about Earth. And because those extraterrestrial beings cannot come here and live, well, they wouldn't be accepted, nor would they be able to withstand our bacteria and viruses and our food and pesticides and everything. So they can't come here. But the next best thing that they can do is take one of the people that they want to have experiences with anyway and give them the genetics so that they will have some of them, the extraterrestrials, in them. And through these beings, these humans who are ET human hybrids, they will be able to have the work carried out, the benevolent work that they would like to see done here because they can't come and do it themselves. So all of the hybrids I know have lots and lots of experiences with those beings who gave them their DNA. And
Right.
they really love these visits. They love these beings. And it turns out, with many of them whom I know very, very well, that in previous lifetimes, some of the previous lifetimes, they were humans, of course, but in some previous lifetimes, they were each one of those species, different lifetimes, each one of those different extraterrestrial species. They were extraterrestrials themselves. And so the extraterrestrials who gave them the DNA in this lifetime and who visit them frequently, they feel to the person, the hybrid, they feel like family. And every one of the hybrids I've known well has said, independently of all of the others, they've said that they always felt from the very beginning of life, always felt like their real family was not their biological family who they were growing up with, but they were the extraterrestrial beings, that few kind of extraterrestrial beings out there in space. And they all expressed that they felt like their real home was
up
out
there.
there in space.
I can believe that. And they feel like that one of the signs, they feel like they don't belong here. And it is interesting. I've seen a lot of people, not a lot, but I could tell when I see someone who looks like a hybrid. They have a very thin face, almost like purity. There's like a pureness in those faces and in the eyes. And they just seem so clearly not human to me.
Yes, very frequently, not always, but very frequently, they have eyes that they look like human eyes, but they're a bit bigger.
Right.
They're bigger than most
of the face.
eyes. Yeah.
Yes. And they penetrate, and there's a purity. So I'm learning that this is pretty widespread, do you think, across the planet then, that these encounters are happening, that babies are being born here? Do you?
Well, we definitely know that people having extraterrestrial encounters, that is a worldwide phenomenon. Probably in all countries, there are people who are visited, taken away by the extraterrestrial beings. Now, I would assume, I don't know specifically, but I would assume that there are many, many ET human hybrids all over the world, just like there are here in the United States. Because if the experiencer phenomenon is worldwide, I should think the hybrid
It's growing.
phenomenon would be too. And that those beings not only want to see people grow and rise in consciousness here in this country, but they want to see that happen all over the world. So I certainly assume that there are hybrids doing the work that they can in other countries as well.
So you feel it's a good agenda, that what the bottom line with the hybridization, because you called it the hybridization program.
Yeah.
You also said something that they know, like that Barbara was open to having experience, so now you're going to have more experiences. So I feel like there's a little social media network up there. They go, okay, you want some really interesting human to talk to Joan and Barbara. She'll give you new insights.
Oh yeah, because as I was saying earlier, they seem to know so much about us. They know so much more about us than we know about them. And
Right.
you and I and people like us, we try to learn everything that we can about them. And they're aware of this. And they're aware of you, Joan, I'm sure, absolutely. And,
We're going to have a visit tonight.
probably cheering you on. I feel cheered on. I really do.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I don't feel the inclination or the energy for traveling and going to another conference. I mean, I'm excited in a way, but thinking, gee, this is really an effort. And yet there is this other thing that comes in that sort of carries me through. And I think that other thing that I'm talking about, not a thing, but shall we say a force or an energy, a spirit, comes in and enables me to do that and to do it perfectly well and to always actually enjoy doing it. Yeah, whether I had felt like it or not.
You look like you're listening all the time. You're so present wherever you are, Barbara. I want to tell people how they can find you and what you're up to, so they know your current event. We've seen your book, which is on her website, barbaralamregressions.com. Can they book an appointment with you? What would you like them to do?
Yes, people can order each one of my 4 books online, and we certainly are encouraging people to do the ET Friends book.
Yes.
New and fresh and very significant, I think. Also, they can add an email message to me on the website. They can order the books that way, pay through PayPal. It's very simple. And I send them out and do a little message and my signature with each one. They can also order any of those books on Amazon.com. And so they're very readily available. That's certainly a nice feature. And they can leave me an email message. Many people contact me for regressions by filling in the form on the website, and that gets sent over to my emails. And then I do eventually, I'm kind of behind in that a bit now, but I do eventually answer every one of them and see many clients that way. So I am available. And, especially because of COVID, we were using Skype and Zoom for the regressions and found out that works very, very well. And so I'm continuing to do that work as well as in person. The in-person work is done mostly in San Diego, California, where I am, and the conferences when I'm there speaking and doing experiencer work. But it's really nice that anybody in the world literally
Right.
can do a session with me on Skype or Zoom. And I have done a number of experiences, regressions with people from other countries. And it works just amazingly well. I mean, you know, I'm just so grateful for this technology, like talking with you right now.
I know, right?
It's wonderful. I feel like I'm right with you.
I love this. You're almost here in my angel studio, where I think the angels and some of the extraterrestrials have a lot in common too, with
Yes.
that energy. They do for sure. We'll talk
Yes.
about more next time. I have loved having you on the show. I think these are all the questions, my first level of questions. If I had you another hour, next time I have even more questions, but I feel like I understand a lot more, first of all, about you and what motivates you. I say that this is stepping into the miraculous. I'm calling forth miraculous type people who do things that assist others and inspire. So that's why I had you on the series. But I love this topic. I just feel like the ETs are here to help us uplift our consciousness. Those of us who are privileged to have this kind of contact, we are lucky and fortunate, and it is a miracle in so many ways, which you've been describing. So this has just been beautiful.
You are doing wonderful work too, Joan, in bringing all this out. And, you yourself are such a lovely example of all of this and these finer beings being in the universe and contacting us and bringing out all this information through other people as well. So that's great. You're very much a part of this.
I am very much a part of it. I've had my own little role in it, my own 10 acres. And I'm very much of an intuitive. And I do readings for people. I help you look at who you are, why you're here, and sort of see the whole big picture as well. We have Omar, by the way, who I am interviewing. This is great, Omar, because now I could tell everyone that I'm interviewing you tomorrow. And we're going to have a great time. Love Omar's doing, and you'll find out tomorrow, everyone, all about the Disclosure Conference this weekend that Omar has put together with 55 great speakers. So there it is.
Could you tell a little bit more about that? About how a person could get? Is it an online conference?
It is an online conference, and oh my goodness, why don't I have the link right in front of it? Can you post a link right in front of us, Omar, so that it gets back up here so we can show it before I release Barbara from our screen? All right, guys, it's a 55 speaker conference, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I am speaking on Sunday at 10, and I'm interviewing two amazing plant medicine people, Disclosure that way, also on Sunday. So from 9 to 11 up, and there you have it. He came on just to ask you to speak this weekend. Barbara, I have one spot open if you'd like to participate.
Okay.
There you have it. Okay.
Sure.
And now he has posted it for all of us. And we'll take a peek at that. Eventbrite, total disclosure tickets, guys. And we'll have to see if we can cut and paste that also. Well, this has been wonderful, Barbara. So I'll get to see you at the conference this weekend. All of you guys, you just saw history in the making. This is how great conferences happen. Just like this, where the speaking get picked up. Omar, and guys, I'm going to be talking with Omar tomorrow. So you'll find out why he's all into disclosure and what that means. So it's going to be a wonderful addition to what Barbara has said.
Oh, good.
Barbara?
So
okay, I will get your email from Joan Hangarter. That's
good. Yeah,
I'll hook you up. You are speaking this weekend. Wonderful. All right, thank you, Omar. Thank you. In fact, thank you to everyone. Anyway, thank you, Barbara. If you want to wait around till we've closed out the show, we could chat for a few minutes. I'd love it. Guys, Barbara is amazing. If you feel called at all, if you feel any part of you is not like the rest of the human race, which I know all of you who are listening feel that way, then Barbara has a lot of wisdom for you, right? All right. Thanks, Barbara. We'll see you next time. Oh my God, was that amazing and wonderful? Just so wonderful. I have never interviewed Barbara before. In fact, I'm just getting my own courage up to step into the miraculous and bring you all of these amazing people. So I'm so excited to see all your comments, your feedback, that you've been loving the show, loving Barbara. And tomorrow you hop back on, you'll see Omar. And so share us out with your friends. If you're new, please like, subscribe, and share. I know you heard it a lot. If you like our hemp works, check it out as well. And I am now going to be teaching and launching my new intuitive ninja class, where you can learn how to use the superpowers that our extraterrestrial friends have shared with us. Because I actually believe, and I know that over the years, the more I've been connected to these other beings, and allowed that consciousness to come through me, the more my connection to the divine has happened. So this intuitive class, you will probably love if you have had any of these experiences. Anyway, I am fantastic, Omar, but that's because of the people around me. So I appreciate that. Anyway, check out my website, joanofangels.com. Like, subscribe, and share, and we will be stepping into the miraculous with you all tomorrow. So have a great and fantastic day. You've been listening to Joan of Angels, and we will see you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful week.